What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. DJ Reacts. Gonna do stuff a little bit different. Don't want to be on camera, so if you guys want me on camera, just let me know. But I'm putting out this series on SPIERS. I think it's something that in 2024, especially new people who are starting to understand things and just I don't know, just become really understanding to what's happening out there. I thought this was something that needs to be put back out there. I've tried to make this video over the past week times. File sizes, software messing up on me, so we'll give it a shot. But yeah, let's get into the content. I think this is important. I think everybody needs to be very aware of this. And plus, he says a lot of good stuff that people aren't really tuned with anymore, unless known this for a while. So yeah, that's why I'm putting this out there. So let's get into it.
I know who they are.
Well, who are they?
Well, the Alpha Draconis.
Yes.
Well, they're the top. They're the big. They're like dinosaurs. So we'll go to this. We'll go to this real quick. There was a split on Earth. Then you had Atlantis and you had Lemuria. And Lemuria, you had the reptilian form that we know as, or they know as, or we know as. And in Atlantis, you have the Syrian blonde blues, right?
The Syrian what?
Blonde blues.
Blonde blues. Blue-eyed.
Blonde-haired, Lyra.
Yeah.
Those are the original human beings. Okay, so there was two continents.
Yeah. Sumeria.
Well,
And Atlantis.
Way pre-Sumeria. I'm talking about just Lemuria,
yeah.
or Mu,
and
Atlantis.
Right.
Just two continents on this planet. No bits and pieces, just two continents.
And this was when the planet was much smaller, but much denser. The gravity field was much bigger.
There was also a field around the outside that kept the water, kept the temperature at the same temperature at all time.
So the whole planet had one weather system,
all the time. All the time. It kept the same. And it was a bubble that kept the same way, and so that was all good. But that particular Draconis system lost in a war. With, not talking about Marduk or Mars, not talking about that, or the 100,000-year war, not talking about that. This is the gem, we're fighting for that. That particular Draconis group lost. They got pushed underground. They got fucked and they got lost and they got pushed underground.
Now, when you're saying underground, you're talking about the inner Earth.
Right.
Monsters in the head.
13 M. Why is McDonald's M everywhere? Why? Why is that? Why subconsciously you think of M and 13 everywhere? Because you know inside yourself, when you see that, that means you know really you're coming back again. And that's alright. And that's fine. Come back again and do it. You know what? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with coming back again. Because there isn't anything wrong with good or bad. Come back and do it again. I just don't want to do it. I have something else to do. Numerology is very important. The Kabbalah cheats. The Kabbalistic magicians cheats. They cheated Sephiroth. Cheated.
That's something interesting that he talks about. He's talking about the 13 M's, so the 13 multidimensional beings who control the reincarnation process on Earth. And that's a good topic. I'll add some of my own personal experiences.
And they're the generals of doing that. Baal, Moloch, Belial, Moloch particularly,
Why particularly with
Why
a smile?
particularly Mars?
Yeah.
I don't like saying his name.
Alright.
Yeah. Why particularly him? Because he's third in command of that. Of Galatia.
Can you describe their domains?
Where do they come from?
Yes.
They come from the lower vibrational spiral, but they get pulled up because if you say, can you give me a 50-year life, which is nothing, a 50-year life of cars and women and this, I'll give this to you, then that's who they are.
What's the bargain usually involving?
That you have to come back again. All they want you to do is loop. All they want you to do is loop.
See, the fact that he said, I don't even like to say his name, tells me right there he knows exactly what he's talking about. Because there's one under that, I won't say their names, because those names have power, and saying them is not something you should do. But there's one that's very common here that's under that last one, and it begins with a Z. I will never say it, but if you know who it is, show it in the comments. I want to see if anybody knows that one.
What that's going on is a war of DNA. So the reason why they interbreed, the reason why they're looking for an interbreeding with each other is because they want to make sure that they maintain this particular DNA within their family line. Because this particular DNA gives them exalted abilities, gifts, psychic gifts. Yeah, I'm going to go with the word psychic. Telepathic, telekinetic gifts. So they inbreed not because, well, partly because they are twisted, but on the other side of that, it is because they are trying to maintain this particular strand of DNA within their bloodline. So to give an analogy, if understanding that the 3D world that we live in is illusory, it's a three-dimensional, illusional world.
The whole point of this whole fucking thing, the 3D thing, was to understand black and white. And why black and white was black and was white.
What's the what does that mean? What do you mean? You're talking about the two polarities.
And they're the same thing. In truth, black and white are the same
You can't
thing.
have light, you can't have shadow without light.
Right.
So what you've got is you've got the Saturn as we have now with the ring around it, projecting out a false reality pockets. False reality. It hits the moon, and the moon is working like an amplifier, which then creates and projects the false reality onto this planet. So we're living an inverted reality here. It's not how it doesn't.
What do you mean by an inverted reality?
Well, an inverted reality in the sense that you succeed by doing bad. You succeed by fucking over. Excuse my language. You succeed by screwing over your fellow man. If you're that's if you want to go along with that. I don't care if you succeed. I'd rather not succeed and be okay and take care of people I love. So whether or not success is not, I'm not interested in that. What I'm trying to do is change the frequency here so that ceases to exist anymore.
To make the male and the female blend together to have the ultimate slave.
Is that because they don't rebel, or they don't?
Well, if you have both together, then it's just efficiency. It's just being efficient. Because
It's not wanting them to reproduce, because you're producing them anyway.
Absolutely, exactly. I have extremely high Kundalini energy. Extremely high Kundalini energy, which means, So if we're talking about, see, I'm not a super spiritualist as in Sarah is, understanding like that, but I do know this: crown, throat, heart, solar plexus, and this area here is the part that manifests in 3D. This is the part that manifests in 3D. So if you have a little boy who has an extraordinary amount of that particular energy, as a little boy, untouched, because obviously virginal, untouched, you can take and manipulate and build with that energy.
Build what? That energy.
You can, with that energy, you can do anything you want. You can build an empire. You could build the Roman Empire.
Now remember what he's saying here. So he's talking about, he's got high Kundalini energy, but nothing's higher than virginal young boy, untouched, right? So this goes back to those unalivings of those younger people for that energy. And building an empire, building anything you want from it is very possible. And that's why these people that we always talk about, you guys know what I'm talking about. That's why these people are doing the things that they do. You've got 800,000 children each year go missing within the continental US, and 500,000 more, roughly, that are undocumented go missing. You've got 1.2, maybe more than likely more, of those specific types of people that just are gone every year. And when you hear these things and you see these big pedo rings that we've got here, this is why those things are happening. Sick minds, sick people. I'm not saying everybody's doing that. Everybody has their own reasons, but the people at the top, that 1% of the 1%, that 0.01% of them, definitely doing it for this. And it goes all the way back to the Black Pope in the Vatican. It's very sad to see him struggling to get a thought across and to speak. You can see that monarch programming, that MK Ultra programming that he's trying to struggle through, actually put this out there. And he was silenced for it. Another one, silenced for that.
I mean, every time I look at any of the rituals that they do in the Vatican, it's just so clearly a satanic ritual. It's unbelievable. They say Satanus in their invocations when they're doing it. I don't understand why people aren't seeing that. I think there's like a spell or something done, thrown over the masses. So they literally just don't hear, or just don't see these things.
They're in a certain state of mind.
Yes, yeah. They're where they're just unable. It's impossible for them to be able to see it.
And so this reminds me, this is the second time he's brought up Saturn. So this reminds me of the Saturnalia Brotherhood. It's the longest running and most secretive magic order in the world, and it became publicized around the 1970s in Germany, so nobody even knew about it until the 70s. Still a sacred magic brotherhood. Back to Thule Society that is in Germany, as well as the Vril. I said this before, I had a family member part of the Thule Society a long time ago. All these things are linked and interchangeable. But yeah, Saturnalia Brotherhood. I'll put a link to it in the description.
From my memory, at Death Point, which I remember many times, that when you walk towards light, it's a false light. You're walking into enlightenment that is not. It's the false Luciferian light.
Some have referred to that as the greys bringing you there.
Right. So it's a trick. And as soon as you walk through that light, you get immediately mind erased.
So this is something that's very intriguing to me. I haven't heard anyone talk about that when it comes to the unaliving process. I've heard it the reverse, actually, so it's good to hear this side of it. Dolores Cannon speaks a lot about this when she talks about taking people through the unalive process. So, and the birth process. And what he just described is what she normally describes as the birth process. So before you're born, same thing. You know, you have all your plans, you know who you'll come in contact with, your contracts are already written and signed, and then as soon, and you think you have everything together, and then as soon as you're going through that tunnel and you see that bright white light, which with the birthing part, you see that white light because it's the light of the hospital or wherever you're being born at. But as soon as you go towards that light and come out, everything's erased. You forget it all. Because if you don't forget it all, then there's no such thing as free will. So you can have all this planned out, but you're not supposed to have it planned out. And so the point is for you to forget once you cross that path into the white light. So you have to forget, because otherwise there would be no free will. You could just plan everything out the way you want it, the way you actually did before you came here, and you would do all of that. And that's not free will, because you're coming in with an agenda, with everything already in place, and that's not natural. It's not normal. You can't do that freely, you know. So it's interesting that he speaks of it that way.
Television, mainstream media is pushing more and more for people to empathize with the sociopath in television and movies, and they'll create a movie or a TV show where Dexter is in it, like a prime example, where you'll have, and he's a serial killer, but somehow the writing will be done where you'll empathize and you think, oh, it's not so bad, you know, it's fine. I like this guy, and so you'll end up having a connection with him, although he is torturing and killing people. Now, when you use Goetia magic, each one represents a different thing, maybe for money, maybe for food, maybe for power. So if you know what you're doing, it's necromancy. If you know how to, necromancy is about the summoning and raising of these particular things. You can summon them.
Jimmy Savile's stuff.
Yes, he was actually very, very high up.
Well, he obviously must be, because of the clearance he obviously got.
Yeah, very high clearance.
Which is a big alarm bell for the whole echelons again. You know,
absolutely. But you can summon these, and if you do what you're supposed to do, if you do what they say, and you know, they'll do you favors. And
that's at a cost.
Oh yeah, in the end it's at a cost. Yeah, you're selling your soul,
and
they'll have you after.
Yeah, and that means short-term gain, long-term loss.
You can even have what seems like long-term. You can have a lifetime gain. But
yeah, but after that,
you're always going to lose somebody close to you, because they always want to take something from you that's close to your heart.
So one of the people he's talking about is James Caspel, aka Michael Prince. But notice at the end he's talking about different types of necromancy. But remember, he said you'll always lose someone close to you. So he's talking about somebody being sacrificed for you to gain whatever it is that you're going to these lower vibrational demonic entities for. So you will always lose somebody. And we see that all the time. We already know, you know, we see it all the time. They've had to cost someone their lives in order for them to get to where they are. That's a very typical thing that we hear. We hear it over and over and over. So, yeah, it makes sense. But I'll probably do a video on Michael Prince, James Caspel. I'll probably do one on them later.
No, it was a Crowley ritual, and it was connected to the Boleskine house other doorway that he didn't bother to close. But the
one in Loch Ness.
Yeah, he didn't close it. He couldn't close it.
Or did he not close it, or did he couldn't close it?
He couldn't close it. It was too much for him. He couldn't. Dialed in all these lower fourth dimensional beings that are here now.
I didn't want to take part in any of that, so I stood well back.
Yes, because these things are. We're talking about the Goetia demons, the high Goetia demons that were locked away for a long time.
And why are they called the high Goetia demons?
Well, you know, in the 72 Goetia demons are ranked sort of similar to our aristocracy here. They have dukes and princes and kings and like that. And Crowley wanted to release them here, and the She'll release a lot of them like that, because they want to create hell on earth. They want to create, well, hell is not the word they use, but they want to create the lower fourth into 3D here, because they like that.
So if you pay attention to what he's talking about Aleister Crowley. Now remember, Aleister Crowley was linked with his religion, I guess you would call it, called the Golden Dawn. So that was Aleister Crowley's ritual. He's the author of the Satanic Bible. And Aleister Crowley, Carl Sagan, which is one of the people who helped invent the Hubble telescope, and L. Ron Hubbard are all a part of the same group from back then, way back then. And Carl Sagan was at Jet Propulsion Laboratories, the NASA site in California. And so, and it's one of the few that's not a space and rocket center, because I've been to every space and rocket center at least 2 to 3 times within the continental U.S. for work. And JPL was not one that I'd ever gone to, because it's not a space and rocket center. So, but he's talking about Aleister Crowley, and all 3 of those people are linked. And it's interesting because there was also a few people that was linked to that started teaching people to start those mega churches. They're all in the same group. L. Ron Hubbard, Carl Sagan, Aleister Crowley, they were all together in that group. And there was an offshoot of it that started teaching the positive, motivational type mega churches that are out now. And so that's where that all comes from. So if you think anything of that is good, you're sadly mistaken. And it's interesting that he talks about this because Crowley did this ritual, and he opened this door to bring out, one of the high, the high lower vibrational demons, to bring those forth. And if you look at the 72 keys of Solomon, those are the 72 demons of Goetia that he's referring to. And the story goes, I have these books, but the story goes that Solomon had a ring, and that ring allowed him to have those 72 demons do his bidding. And so he had them build his temple. And so from what everybody knows, that's who actually built his temple, were those 72 demons. And the book is an interesting read. I'd highly suggest it. But it's also something you should know about, because these aren't false things. These are all real things. And at the end, what he's talking about, them wanting to bring that here, they're not trying to bring the lower vibrational realm here. They're trying to bring themselves here, because they can't feel like we do. When you pour that milk over your cereal and you want that, they can't feel that They can't feel that joy. Or if you were to take a fork and, get a piece of pie, and you're yearning for that piece of pie, maybe it's apple, maybe you put some, vanilla ice cream with it. They can't feel that. And then when you eat it, the joy you get from that, they can't feel that. They can't feel anything. So that's what they want. They want to feel. They want to be able to feel the way we do, because they can't feel anything. Nothing means anything to them other than power.
And also the subconscious understands that symbol far better than what our
all of us understand the symbols there, just not, maybe not, not consciously, but subconsciously we do. So they can speak to us through that way, and they do every day, all day, through I've noticed with commercials too, that when you have a block of commercials, they're not individual anymore. They're all connected together. They've honed down the mind control technique so much that I can watch them and I can see how each one of the commercials is connected to each other, and how each one of the commercials is also connected to the television show that it's on as well. So they're sort of balancing it in, and it is a massive bombardment of symbology that goes on through TV now, and very fast changes, camera shifts like this, which then invokes, that.
He's absolutely right. I mean, your subconscious mind understands everything a lot faster than you consciously can. I'm sorry, your unconscious mind. And they put those symbols out there because even though you might not be consciously thinking about it, television puts you into this beta state. And so you're kind of just in a lull, and but you're taking everything in unconsciously. So those symbols, you're taking all of that in. You're allowing them to speak to you unconsciously and affect you unconsciously. It's the same thing like what the Rockefellers did with the frequency of music. They were a part of that physics group, and they were a big part of it because of donations, and they changed the frequency of music back in 1935 or 37, one of those. They changed it. I know they started in 35. It might not have happened until 37. I can't remember, but they changed the frequency of music to 440 hertz. That 440 hertz is a very harmful frequency. And before that, it was on a very healing frequency. And that was all done intentionally, both sides. So that's why now, when you see people that can't use any kind of critical thinking when they listen to music, they can't enjoy it just to hear it, and they act upon it, it's not just them, it's because that's how those people wanted them to react. That's why all these prisons are built, and that's why all of these rules are put into place after that happened. The school system, all of these things were put into place right around that time, and they were just waiting for people to become inundated with that stuff for years and then act upon it.
With shows like Family Guy, it's extremely vile. I mean, it's become, South Park, it's become extremely vile, and they say these are cartoons made for, adults, but they know full well if it's a cartoon that kids are going to be drawn to it. So you've got young children watching, extremely vile things. And one thing I couldn't believe on Family Guy, there's one of the characters is a pedophile, and it's funny, and it's supposed to be funny. It's laughed at.
How is that funny?
The guy, just an old man who is predatorial to the children. And
so it's normalising it.
Yes.
I mean, what I've noticed myself.
That's part of the new world. Part of their new world system is to totally normalise that.
I love that he's putting that out there because, they did try to normalize it. So they tried to normalize that to the point to where the actual pedos, and the organization is called NAMBLA. So it's North American Man Boy Love Association. And the funny thing, in their logo, every letter is capitalized except for the B. And I remember they were trying to get into the whole LGBT whatever thing that was happening a couple of years ago. And they really wanted to be accepted and wanted to be a part of that. And so, since all of these other things were part of it, the transgenderism, all of it, they wanted to be a part of that. And the insane thing is there's a group in Florida, and it's a group of people that either have the disorder and have gone to prison or haven't offended, and they live in an area, they live in a few houses in a neighborhood where regular people live. And I remember this guy doing an interview with them, and obviously they didn't want to talk about anything, but they all will talk about each other like the rest of them are the problem, but I've never done anything. And then there's a guy across the street that's got two little girls, and so they ask him, they're like, hey, does this bother you having them here? And he's like, well, at first it did, but none of them have caused any issues yet, so I'm good with it. And their landlord is, he says he's very strict about it, and he doesn't let them do anything. And there's cameras everywhere, and if they did anything, people would know, and they would just get the book thrown at them. But my whole thing is even society today, just like on Family Guy with that pedo, and even if you look at psychology today, they talk about it's not a big issue, these people with this disorder. And so psychologically, uh, their wires are crossed backwards. So where, myself as a man will look at a grown woman and be attracted to her, but when I look at my daughter or any of the kids that come over to play, I think, protect them, love them, protect them, make sure that, they're doing the right things, but overall protect them. Theirs are backwards. So what a normal man would feel for a woman and think for a child or their child, it's completely reversed with them, and there's no fixing that. And they say it's not a big issue. Well, it's a big issue. Have you ever gone onto your phone and searched for where these violators are in your area, and just do like a 5 mile diameter search? Your phone will break out into chicken pox with so many red dots. So yeah, it's an issue, and I thought it was an issue before I even saw that they're trying to protect them. They're trying to get into that protected space of the whole tranny thing going on. But yeah, it's just that's really bad. That's just really bad. I don't care who you are, what country you're in. Saying that that's not an issue is the issue for me.
After watching television for something like 15 minutes, it puts the mind into like a beta state.
Yeah.
So which is like you usually go into a dream or a hypnotized dream state. So then it can then speak directly to your subconscious. So you watch a television show, a particular television show before you go to bed and you go to sleep. You have then been astrally programmed to do something in astral by the television program.
Yes.
We haven't even covered.
And that's quite a labyrinth, isn't it?
Yeah. This particular planet, Earth, is an anagram for heart. So this planet here is the one that they want to take control of. So they want to take control of the heart. The human heart is connected to the Earth. And that's the one that they can't. It's very easy to control the base of the chakra, because that's mainly what's driven through television and media all the time. That's all. The base is always like primal energy, bestial energy is sort of always evoked, and they can sort of feed from that. But it's the heart energy that they really want. So you have 666. But what really is 666? It's not quite what.
The interdimensional gate.
Right, and it's also talking about raw human being. The carbon atoms, 6 carbon atoms, 6 oxygen atoms, 6. I think.
Oh, right. Didn't explain that.
It's the 666 is it's also explaining to you time. 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day. So you have 666 there. It's old father time. And what creates time here? Saturn. Saturn is manifesting the false reality of time here. So the big illusion is time.
I love that he's mentioning this. So he's talking about the perfect human, the 6 protons, 6 neurons, 6 electrons. And that's a point that a lot of people don't speak about. But numerology plays a very big role in a lot of the things that are going on, but nothing plays the most role. There's bits and pieces taken from so many different things that to try to figure this stuff out, you would be like me. You'd be reading books, looking up stuff, looking up the absolute worst stuff you can find to figure out, why are they doing these things? Who's doing it? What's the agenda? What's the plan? And it changes like every decade or so. It doesn't change, it alters a bit, because they finish one, they go to another.
To take out the planet, first of all, they need to take away the strong males of the planet. And so there's a massive push and a surge to emasculate the males on this planet. And it's a very touchy subject because you can't really go too far with it without being called a bigot or without being called.
Well, it's a bit like the Jew term that immediately triggers.
You're immediately condemned if you say anything that goes against kind of the mainstream thought of that. So I'm being careful, and I'm not prejudiced in any way, but there is quite clearly an agenda going on with that. And the Jenner story, which was showing that they could, right in front of our eyes, take a gold medal Olympic athlete and then turn him into a female, was also embedding into the subconscious that look what we can do, look what we can do to you if we want to.
Now, I know usually I wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole, but they're probably going to cancel me or shadow ban me anyways. So if you don't know, what he's talking about is Kris Jenner. That's what she's known by now. But Jenner was the peak of male masculinity. He was a multi-Olympic athlete, peak male masculinity at the time, multi-Olympic winner. And from what I know, he didn't get turned. He chose to do that as an option because of unaliving someone that he hit with his vehicle. That's what I've been able to find. If you know something differently, put it in the comments, let me know. I'm not saying I'm always right. I'm just saying my own perception, and that's what I've learned. But still, those are all anti-human things, right? The masculinity agenda. So we've got the big thing with autism, with the flu shots. I know personal friends of mine that I've known since a teenager, and they were in the Air Force, they were in the Army, some the Marines, and their children, grew up military like I did in a very short part of my life. But this was before all of that, so their children end up, when they come of age and they start getting their shots, they're completely fine, and then they start getting these shots, and all of a sudden they become autistic. And very many people with autism are sterile. This is a very big anti-human agenda. I would wager to say anything that is anti-human, like transhumanism, the transgender agenda, nuclear war, any of these things are anti-human. So all of these things that are being pushed that's anti-human would have to be pushed by beings that are not human. That's just my take. When we as a human species decide to wipe out, idiotically and very ignorantly and arrogantly decide to wipe out a forest, and people are caring about specific animals there that may be close to extinction. When we're doing that, we're anti whatever that animal is, because we're not caring about the earth or that animal. We're caring about ourselves and what we can gain from this vile act. And I think it's the same thing here. Any of these things that are anti-human, it has to be done by beings that are not human, because somebody that was pro-humanism would never do that.
The original Baphomet, the original Baphomet, I think we were talking to you about this earlier, wasn't an androgynous goat of Mendez pointing as above, so below like that at all. But Eliphas Levi then created this goat to show what it would be to externally create a male and female in one body, to have an androgynous being that way. And I've talked about the Mona Lisa being sort of the same thing. It never made any sense to me why that particular picture or that particular painting was the most famous painting in the world. Why it's not a fantastic painting.
Yeah, that's a mystery about why is it a mystery.
And then you have Mona, and in Freemasonry they use the word Mona a lot because it's Ammon. It's an anagram for Ammon. And then Lisa, which would be in Italian, would be El Isa, which is Isis. So it's like the union of Ammon-Ra and Isis into one body. That's what the Baphomet is. The goat that they're always showing, that imagery that Eliphas Levi painted and created.
he said a lot right there. That is a whole lot to take in. He's talking about the Amun Ra, the anagram for it, and all of that makes sense because that's where we get, you know, amen from and all of these things. That's going to wrap it up on this one. I think I'm at my peak for file size, so this will be the first one, and I'm going to put out at least 2, if not 3 more, so let me know what you guys think. Have a good one.